In the heart of a small town, nestled between rolling hills, there lived a man named Thomas, in his early 50s. He had always been a dedicated worker, rising with the sun and putting in long hours at his small hardware store. Yet, despite his hard work and sincerity, Thomas couldn't shake the feeling that his life was stuck. Every day felt the same: open the shop, serve a handful of customers, close up, and repeat. While his neighbors expanded their businesses, traveled, and celebrated their successes, Thomas felt like he was watching life from the sidelines. There was a quiet ache in his heart, a longing for something more. But no matter how much he tried, prosperity seemed as distant as the farthest star. He couldn't help but wonder if his dreams were meant to remain just the dreams. The more he thought about it, the more he felt trapped in a life that was slowly passing him by. One crisp evening, as the sun began to dip behind the hills, casting long shadows over the town, Thomas found himself sitting on the worn bench outside his store. The world around him seemed to be moving faster than he could keep up with. The chatter of the few passing pedestrians, the hum of the streetlights flickering on, and the distant sound of laughter from a nearby cafe only reminded him of how stagnant his life felt. He sighed deeply, staring at the empty road in front of him, feeling more and more invisible with each passing day. It was then that an old woman, bent with age and wrapped in a faded shawl, walked by. She had a slow, deliberate pace, her steps quiet but purposeful. Her eyes, though tired, seemed to carry a depth of wisdom that caught Thomas's attention. She paused when she saw him, her gaze soft but knowing. "You look troubled, son," she said, her voice gentle but firm. "What weighs on you?" Thomas looked up at her, his heart heavy. "I feel like I've been working all my life, but nothing ever changes. I watch others succeed, travel, and live their dreams while I'm stuck here, day after day." The woman nodded slowly, then sat down beside him. "Life will give you what you believe you deserve. If you only see yourself in the same place, you will remain there. But if you start to see a future, a different path, and truly believe it's possible, you'll find yourself moving toward it." Thomas listened intently as the old woman's words echoed in his mind. There was something in her voice, something in the way she spoke, that made him feel as though she knew more about him than he realized. Her simple, quiet wisdom felt like a spark in the darkness, and for the first time in a long while, he found himself wondering if there was truth in what she said. She paused for a moment, watching him thoughtfully. "Tell me, son," she continued, "when you close your eyes at night, what do you see?" Thomas blinked, surprised by the question. He had never really thought about it that way. I see my store, just as it is now. Empty shelves, quiet days, the same routine, over and over." The woman nodded, her eyes never leaving his face. "That's the problem," she said softly. "Your mind is like a garden, and the thoughts you plant are the seeds that grow. If you only plant seeds of doubt, that's all that will bloom. But if you plant seeds of possibility, of what could be, then that's what will come to life." For a long while, neither of them spoke. Thomas was deep in thought, reflecting on the old woman's words. Could it really be that simple? Could his mindset, his belief in a better future, change everything? Slowly, he stood up, a glimmer of hope stirring in his heart for the first time in years. Maybe it was time to start planting a new vision for his life. That night, Thomas lay awake in bed, his mind racing. He couldn't stop thinking about the old woman's words. For the first time in a long while, he felt a spark of hope that perhaps everything didn't have to stay the same. Maybe it was true that the way he saw himself and his future could change his life. As the clock ticked on, Thomas decided to try something different. He closed his eyes and took a deep breath, willing himself to picture a life beyond the small store and monotonous routine. Instead of the familiar empty shelves and quiet evenings, he imagined himself standing in a bustling, well-stocked shop, filled with customers laughing and chatting. He saw himself greeting them with a smile, offering helpful advice, and receiving thanks for his hard work. He visualized his business growing, his reputation spreading, and the satisfaction of watching something he built with his own hands thrive. For the first time, it didn't feel like a distant dream. It felt real, almost tangible. The next morning, when he opened his store, Thomas noticed a subtle shift in himself. He greeted his customers with a warmth he hadn't felt in years, no longer tired or defeated, but energized and hopeful. He was more focused on improving his shop, learning about new products, and finding ways to make his business more appealing. With every small effort, he began to see changes in his attitude, his approach to work, and even his interactions with others started to transform. His vision had taken root, and now it was beginning to grow. Weeks passed, and Thomas continued to nurture his newfound belief in himself and his business. The shift was gradual but undeniable. His small hardware store, once a place of routine and quiet frustration, began to thrive in ways he hadn't expected. He made a conscious effort to keep his shop clean, organized, and inviting, and it wasn't long before the customers began to notice. Word spread that Thomas was not only knowledgeable, but also kind and attentive. People started returning more frequently, bringing friends and family along. As his confidence grew, so did his ambition. He began to invest in new products, offering items that were in demand, but had been hard to find in the town. He took a few risks, learning about marketing and sales strategies, something he had never done before. The changes were small at first, but the momentum built. His store became busier, the shelves more stocked, and his heart, once heavy with doubt, now soared with the joy of seeing his hard work come to fruition. One evening, standing behind the counter of his thriving store, Thomas paused for a moment. He looked around at the bustling scene, customers laughing, browsing, and chatting, and smiled. He remembered the old woman's words, and as he did, he felt a profound gratitude. It hadn't been magic that changed his life. It had been his belief, fueled by action. What he had envisioned, with conviction and effort, had manifested into reality. He had shaped his future, one thought at a time. Years passed, and Thomas's store became a staple in the town. It wasn't just a place to buy tools. It was a symbol of what belief and hard work could accomplish. He had transformed from a man who once felt trapped in a cycle of frustration into a successful business owner, admired by many. He had learned the power of seeing beyond his current circumstances, of envisioning a future that felt impossible, and then making it real. One day, a young man entered the store, his face clouded with the same frustration Thomas once felt. As they spoke, the young man shared his struggles, how no matter how hard he worked, nothing seemed to change. With a knowing smile, Thomas leaned in, remembering the day he had sat under that tree with the wise old woman. He placed a hand on the young man's shoulder and said, "Your thoughts are architects of your future. If you design failure, failure is what you will build. But if you design abundance with faith and action, life will eventually reflect it." The young man looked at him, unsure but hopeful. Thomas smiled, knowing that just like the old woman had changed his life, he could now offer the same hope and wisdom to others.